Hello everyone. So before we start working on like how we should design or how we finally submit our research proposal in any conference or anywhere in a as a public in the form of publication. So first thing, let's understand what are the key steps to design a research project. So first of all, once you have a clear research idea, so based on that, you need to design or frame your research question. So next, you need to understand what has been already done in a specific area and what are the important loopholes that needs to be addressed. So then you need to go through the literature review process to understand those loopholes. So you already try to understand what are the already important publication that is associated with your research question. So subsequently, you collect the raw data that needs to be needed to be addressed your research questions. So once you have your data, next you need to pre-process your data and you need to explore the data to understand what are the important patterns within your data. Subsequently, you can perform various in-depth analysis to derive a biological significance from the data. Finally, you summarize your results in a form of a research report or a publication. So usually a research project starts with a very basic idea. So this idea then goes through a process of refinement as you dig deeper into a problem and try to narrow down the research question and try to find the evidence for the answer and fill in the gap to reach a particular conclusion. So you must be able to frame your research problem. Thus, finding a research topic that you are truly interested is the key step. Then to define your problem statement is necessary to perform literature review to find a good focus of your study. So as you start exploring the topic, you start making notes of the hypothesis, questions, and the data sets. Many important questions in the biomedical domain have led to the development of various databases to support different studies where already primary data is reanalyzed. So next is finding the gap in the literature. When you find something of interest, something that you can translate into a formal research problem statement, that would be your research topic. Now, let's look at where you can actually go to the review literature for associated study and how you can find important publications. So one of the important resources from where you can find associated studies related with your specific research question is PubMed. And of course, I'm also going to demonstrate to you how you can create a specific query on the PubMed. Then apart from the PubMed, you can also search on Google Scholar or ResearchGate. Now let's look at the major resources from where you can find various types of omics data and you can understand like what type of data is available. So there are a number of the common repositories available on NCBI like GEO, SRN, the bioproject. So the GEO usually it is, or in general what we called it as gene expression omnibus. It maintains both processed raw as well as metadata for the samples. Then there is SRA, which is Sequence Read Archive. So mainly it maintains raw sequencing data. Then you have another common repository, which is Bioproject. So Bioproject maintains both metadata, links for the processed as well as the raw data. So besides these common repositories, now there are some specific repositories based on different disease conditions. For example, if you are interested in oncology, you will find number of the dedicated repositories that maintain multi-omics data for cancer patients. So various public repositories like TCGA, particularly GDC data portal, then Array Express, Firebrowse are the other common repositories where you can find multi-omics data. Then Cosmic maintains mainly mutation data for number of thousands of cancer patients. So then if you're interested in a virology, then there is a dedicated repository, that is NCBI virus, from where you can obtain various types of data, particularly for the different viruses. So here you will find protein as well as nucleotide data. Apart from that, you will also get the metadata for those samples. So once you have your data, before performing in-depth data analysis, first of all, always perform the exploratory data analysis to understand what are the important patterns within your data, and maybe what are the outliers in my data that I need to remove before going to perform in-depth analysis. So always take time to explore the data, make sure that you understand what kind of variations are present. Then structuring the data before the analysis can solve many complications, particularly technical issues you will able to resolve if you properly structure your data. So once your data is ready, now you can perform in-depth analysis, focusing on a problem and with assurance that you will find biological signals and not the technical noises. Now let's do the hands-on, and let's see first of all how we can find data from the public repository. But before that, how we can perform proper literature review process. So let me take you to the PubMed and how we can create a specific query. So for example, if we are interested in SARS-CoV-2, so what we can do, we can actually create our specific query. So on the PubMed, if you just create give us some specific keyword, you can create your query. For example, if I just search SARS-CoV-2, right? So now we have, so right now I had actually selected this. I need to clear all the filters. So for example, if we just use one keyword, that is SARS-CoV-2, we get nearly 2,200 publications, because SARS-CoV-2 is very recent one. So we got just 2,000. But many a times when your question is like related to some very old disease condition or any very old research area, so in that perspective, you will get thousands or lakhs of the results. So it is not possible to go through each and every publication to understand what is already done. So what should be the right approach to design research question as well as to do proper literature review? So what we need to do, you will find here one option, that is advanced option. You just need to click on here. Now what you need to do, here you can create actually specific queries. For example, SARS-CoV-2. So this is my first keyword. And of course, on the left side, you will find this option all field. What you need to choose. So always try to keep it minimum. So we can choose title and abstract. So this keyword must be present in my title and abstract. So then if I more than one query, I just want to create my specific query. For example, I am also interested to study host response. Right, so we have we want to analyze or want to understand what is host response with the relation to the SARS-CoV-2, right? So in relation to the SARS-CoV-2, so I'm also using another keyword, that is host response. Then maybe you are interested a particular data types, like if you want to look at transcriptomic signature, proteomic signatures, or maybe you are looking at host response in terms of some metabolites, right? So right now, for example, I am interested in transcriptomics. So I just want these keywords must be present there. So then you can go to search. So with this particular query, now we are left with nearly 6 results, right? So Now, out of this, always try to find out, look at the important recent publications. And most importantly, if you're able to find literature review articles, because the review articles usually cover the broader perspective, but is already done in this area and what are the loopholes. So some of those things are usually discussed in the review. So always go through the review articles that associated with your specific research interest. So always read the recent review article which are published in good journals. So that is how we should find. Once you have like 5, 10 or something like that review articles, so then you can go through those review articles to understand what are the already done and what are the loopholes that needs to be addressed. So this is how we can do the literature review process. Now, from the literature review, next, if you already find some or refine your research question, next to how we can find data from the public repository. So let me first take you to the NCBI. So here you can create your query simply for SARS-CoV-2. So here, so once you just created your query on NCBI, next what you need to do. So for example, it automatically give you the different perspective which is available on NCBI. First, for example, you can also get the directly reference genome sequence from here. And then here the important publication that associated with this keyword, and then under different data resources. So if you are looking for already processed data, particularly under the geo data set, you will get that link. So let me also show you. So it will take you to the geo where you already have processed data. And I will also go to this, like I will demonstrate to you how we can obtain a specific data set from this and how we can understand whether data is good or not, right? And another thing, if you are interested in raw sequencing data, sometimes you also need to do some other analysis with the raw data. So you can also take the raw data from under the genome option. Particularly raw data would be available under the SRA and as well as some of the bioprojects that are associated with this keyword. So for example, let me show you no SRA, and similarly this is bioproject. Right? So this is SRA where you can find actually raw data associated with your specific keyword or specific research question. Now you can download these data sets if you have very already you have memory, but otherwise you can also take the data in the form of SRA run table, and I am also going to show you that. So this is SRA where you can find already raw data at RNA-seq raw data. Then similarly, this is the bioproject. So what are the different bioprojects that associated with the SARS-CoV-2? So you can find different bioprojects and look into like what is already done. For example, if you are interested in a particular bioproject, whole genome sequencing of SARS-CoV-2 from COVID-19 patient from Estonia. So for example, let's look at what kind of data it is, what is project is about. So you can always go to directly one project. So you can understand what is already done. And more importantly, many a times you can also find the link to the data sets as well as the metadata links. So for example, for this project, so this is how you can actually go to the bioproject. So these are the different bioprojects. Then here you will have the links with the already raw data as well as the metadata where you can go to the either SRA or the biosample. So you can take the data from here. Now how to find us data or specific data from the geo. Now let me okay, so let's go over geo again. So if you look at here, you have nearly 5,000 data sets. Obviously, no one can explore each and every data. So you need to apply some of the filters depending upon your research question, as well as depending upon what kind of data that you want to work on. So here the first filter, the basic filter that you can apply, for example, based on the organism simply. If you are interested in Homo sapiens, whether you are interested in mus musculus, so you can select a particular organism. So for example, let's click on this. So eventually, after applying the first filter, so you will be left with nearly 3,800 data sets. Still, these data sets are very large to explore. So what we can do, we can apply another filter criteria based on the data type or study design. So here under the study type, you will get this option that is customized. So from this, you can select a specific option. For example, if I am interested in expression profiling by high throughput sequencing, so I can select that specific data type. So I can unselect, for example, methylation is by default selected. So I'm doing unselecting this. Then you need to click on show. So then your selected option appear here. So next you just need to click on this. Now, finally, you're left with nearly 193 data sets. I think if you're doing a bioinformatics research project, definitely you can explore this type of data. Another important thing, so you always set at the order. So because for the bioinformatics research project, if your study is based on very few number of samples, usually it is difficult to publish that work. So that is why it is important that you must have sufficient number of the samples, particularly if you want to publish your bioinformatics research project. So here at the top, you can always select a option. So you can sort your data set based on the number of samples, that is high to low. So which is I have already set by default. Now you need to go through these study to understand. First, you just need to look at the topic, whether this study is relevant with your research question or not. Then second, of course, you need to look at number of the samples. So if you have good number of samples, at least for a bioinformatics research project, unless you have very novel questions, so it is always better if you consider at least 100 samples. Unless you are complete, your research question is complete, very novel, and that is like in that case you even have 10 or 20 samples, that is good enough to publish. But usually you must have good number of samples, especially from the publishing perspective. Now, for example, how to explore a data to understand whether a particular data is good or not. So what we need to do, we need to look at the data itself. Now, what are the important perspectives or aspects that we can explore? So for example, here, so we have, first we need to understand what kind of study is done. So in the title, usually they have like present that. For example, here we need to understand what is this study is about. So this is bulk RNA seq of SARS-CoV-2 infected human lung organoids. So then what is experimental type? So experiment type will provide you what kind of your input data. So it is, if it is expression profiling by high throughput sequencing, it means it's high throughput sequencing RNA-seq data. If your expression profiling by array, it means that is by microarray. So then the next thing, you need to go through the summary itself, like what this study is about or what this data is about. Then under the overall design, many a time authors actually provide you kind of what kind of data they have and how many samples they have, like what kind of sample they are. Like here they have provided organoid generated from primary lung 82 cells over either transfected with SARS-CoV-2 or more. So this kind of question might be interesting. So then we need to understand what kind of information before downloading the data. We need to understand whether this data is good enough to address our research question or not. So how we can do that? First thing, always read about the original publication. But before going into the publication, just explore your data at itself here. For example, here, you need to click on one sample. So here under the characteristics, usually authors provide you what kind of metadata they have associated with these samples, right? So under the characteristics, you will find like what kind of information we have. So for example, here the data was taken from lung organoid, and this is infected or not infected, right? Infected with SARS-CoV-2 or simply mock samples. So then how this data was processed, and this is very important. Whenever you're taking any data, you must know about that, how my data was actually pre-processed, right? How this data was processed. So here under the data processing, you all authors always provide you that information. For example, here they have explained raw reads were aligned using star aligner. Then what was which genome was used? So like GRCH38, which is HG19. So then how they quantify the gene expression, and then what kind of information you have in your supplementary data. So supplementary data, so they have count values and TPM values, right? So once we from the going into the data, we understand maybe this data looks interesting. So now I can explore this data. The next thing, how to download or which particular file we need to download. So here for the RNA-seq data, under the supplementary file, usually already processed data is available. So if it is the RNA-seq data, you need to download these supplementary files. For example, here we have TPM CSV files and count values on CSV files. So I had already downloaded these files. And then where the meta, for example, when I was looking at one sample, right? So I know that what kind of information I have for this particular data. So this is for one sample. So how from where we can obtain information for all the samples. So here under the download family, you will find this file series matrix. So this series matrix file contains the metadata information. Now, if when you actually directed to the series matrix again, you have GSC and 2 GPL. GPL is platform files. So now you need to look like which series matrix or which series matrix is useful for you. Now, if you look at these GPL platforms, so you have one Illumina Nova 6, 6000. This is for Homo sapiens. Other one, this particular platform for both. That is Homo sapiens as well as SARS-CoV-2. So always you need to look at what kind of metadata I needed, right? And once you looks like data is good, now maybe I can explore this. But before exploring and performing any analysis, always go through the publication that was associated or that is associated with this data set. So under the citation, you will find the link to that publication, for example, here. So you need to go through the original publication and need to see what is already done in the literature with this data. So because you can't ask the same question from the data which is already addressed, right? So you need to make sure what your question is novel, because the novel question must be based on the other characteristics or other metadata information you have. So once you have downloaded your data, now let me show you what kind of data we obtained after downloading. And another, this is like already processed data, right? Now, if you're interested in the raw data, so where you can find links for sometimes you need another important information. So from where you can obtain that particular data. So under this relation, you will find the link to the raw data. For example, here SRA, let me take you to the SRA data, which is raw data. Now, let me show you how we can download this SRA data. Now, this SRA is important point that you need to remember. So this SRA data is useful when you want to do different types of analysis with your data, which information is not already available in the process data. And sometimes you are not like, you want to do your own analysis, right? So in that case, you need to download this raw data. But if you're downloading these files, look at these size of these files. It's like 3.9 GB, 4 GB, like 3.8 GB, 3.9 GB. So if you, right now we have like even a 10 samples. So on an average, at least to download this data, I need 4 GB space. But to handle this kind of thing, we can also do or download SRA run table. And this SRA run table is very useful when you're doing analysis on our one of the server, tBANFO server. And I'm also going to show you today, demonstrate to you how we can use or take raw data, right? So here to download this data in a simple or very small size file as a SRA run table, first we need to select this file. Then under the format, instead of the summary, here we need to select run info. Then we need to create this file. Now let me show you what this file contains. And this is very like it's few KB files. So this is what SRA run table, and you can directly submit this SRA run table on tBANFO server. So this is the table that you needed, and you just need to save this file instead of Excel or CSV. Just save this as TXT format, that is a tab separated format, right? So you need to save this file into TXT format. Now let me show you. So this is already for the raw data, right? So now let me also show you how we can use this raw data to process any RNA-seq pipeline. So let me take you to the server. So just give me a second. And let me save this file into a TXT file. So on the server, so let me share this link as well with you. So this is tBANFO server link. So here you can actually use both processed as well as raw data, just in case, because sometimes if you have 100 samples, so for this file, even if you have 100 or 200 samples, so you need at least 400 GB, 800 GB space, right? And many a times our system cannot handle such kind of data. So for those purpose and to tackle those issues, so this tBANFO server is very useful. So here what you need to do. So for example, this is NGS data. From this, you need to select reference genome. So by default, so then these are the FASTQ files. Then these are, what is this organism? That is Homo sapiens. So I'm using latest human genome reference genome. So then we need to look at whether these are single end files or the pair end files. So in our file, we can check whether these are single end or pair end files. So these are the single end data. So here we can select this single end data. So then we need to upload our file. So now here we can actually directly upload this NCBI run table. So we need not to download FASTQ files on our system directly. What we can do, we can directly use this simple SRA run table, which is just few KB. So it is just a 5 KB. Otherwise, you need like, it might be the 10 KB, 20 KB, depending upon if you have 100 or 200 samples. So we can use directly this SRA run table. We need not to download all the samples. So here we can cancel the group. Right now, if then we can do start. And here we are just running RNA-seq, simple RNA-seq pipeline. So then we can do PCR clean to remove any PCR duplicates, then Trim-O-Matic, which will remove any adapters. So then we can, once our reads we get clean reads, next we can map or align our reads on reference genome. So then we can quantify gene expression using a quantification algorithm. As we have used Butai 2T algorithm for mapping, then we can use RSTM algorithm. From here, you can select whether you want FPKM value, whether you wanted expected count or TPM value. So you can select that, and then you can end the pipeline. So then once you had end this pipeline, so this is simple RNA-seq pipeline, right? So once you run this pipeline, now what kind of output that you will obtain? So the outputs that you can obtain, now depending upon, so let me show you, like this is TPM file. So which this TPM file is right now, we already taken this file directly from Geo, but at the end of running the pipeline, you will get this TPM file. So now this TPM or FPKM or RPKM file, depending upon what kind of data that you are using. So I have pasted this in Excel. So here we have ID, that is gene ID or sometimes gene symbol. So then in the columns, we have samples. And these in the cells, these values represent the expression label, right? Now, once we have this gene expression label, so we have clear gene expression table. So similarly, another thing that we obtained from our Geo data, that is metadata. So this is series matrix file. So this series matrix file will provide you information regarding what are these samples and what kind of characteristics you have in the data. So you will get information here itself. So under the characteristics, if you look at, as I already told you, so these are the important column rows, which actually represent what kind of samples you have. So here you have, for example, you know that this is my ID, so corresponding to whether it is mock sample or not. So this is how first we need to prepare our data properly. So then we can name these samples. Exactly, these are the mock samples and which are COVID samples. Now, how we can use this table to perform various types of analysis. So once you have clear gene expression table, before performing any analysis, always the first analysis that you should go for, that is exploratory data analysis. So usually exploratory data analysis method help you to understand what kind of pattern within your data and what is the variability represented by different components. So one of the exploratory data analysis method is principal component analysis. Now let me show you how we can perform exploratory data analysis. So what I can do, I can take this data and save this into a TXT file. So which is I already done. So the next is how I can use that particular data. So I can, so this is simple table that I can save into a TXT file. So how we can use this particular information? Now let me take you to the server again. So I have just taken that particular table, and next I'm going to perform simple exploratory data analysis using PCA. PCA, which is principal component analysis, and principal component analysis is also a dimensionality reduction method. So here under the utility section, so what we need to do, first we need to, under the data mining section, so you will find this module utilities. So here you need to provide that file. So here I can upload now complete table. So if I already have a table, so let me just upload this table. So this is GSE TPM table. And of course, before performing any, so right now my file is getting loaded here. And important point to remember, To perform machine learning or any statistical analysis, our data must be normalized. So right now we have FPKM or TPM values, right? So TPM values in our data. So next, what we need to do, the first thing we should perform normalization. So here by clicking on the start, I'm going to start my first pipeline. So first of all, I'm going to perform quantile normalization. So here in the quantile normalization, first of all, we transforming a data into log scale. So why we actually changing or transforming a data into the log scale? Usually, if you look at this data, so here, this is TPM values. So for example, here you have 0 values, 1 values, then you also have 165, 164 values, right? So this is very wide range. So that is why first thing we need to perform always log scale transformation so that we able to normalize our data before applying any statistical or machine learning method. So I'm going to perform quantile normalization, yes, and threshold I am selecting to perform quantile normalization, that is 5. So then the next option which is automatically get highlighted here, that is PCA. So this is one of exploratory data analysis method, and we also call this method as dimensionality reduction method. Now here I'm selecting by default option. So first it is asking whether you want to transform these table or not. So we already transformed our table into log scale, so we do not need. And whether you want to filter out, here you can also apply filters if you want to filter out very low value. So you can apply that as well. Then the method for the PCA which is working, that is SVD2. So then it is asking whether you also want to standardize your columns and the row. So we are choosing all the by default option. Yes, we are doing that here. And then we can end our pipeline. So this is GSC PCA. And this pipeline, depending upon the size of the data, usually take 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that. But I had already run this pipeline. Let me share its link with you. Just give me a second. So just give me a second. So I had already link of the completed pipeline. So now I need to understand what output that I obtain. So here you got two outputs. Although this is zip folder for all the outputs. So this is the main two outputs. The one is PCA result. The second one is normalized TXT file. If you remember, before performing PCA, we also perform quantile normalization. So you can always download, you should download this file because many a times you need to perform various other machine learning or maybe statistical analysis on your data. So you should use this normalized data. And right now I had already downloaded this PCA results and then I had pasted it into an Excel. Now these are my PCA results. So now what these PCA results represent, because this is very important. Now first, if you look at this, these results, what we got out of this, here we have in the first column, we have the sample ID. So it is like we can use. So then in the columns, if you look at, you have some percentage. Now what is this percentage? So this percentage represent variability represented by each component. So here each feature. So this is one feature, feature 1, feature 2, feature 3. So these are the new features which we have obtained from the PCA. So and these features are known as principal components. So what principal component does? So it compress your data. So it compress your gene expressions or genes into new features. And for example, initially we have nearly 60,000 features. So then it compressed those 60,000 features to generate these 10 or 9 or 10 new features. And each feature here represents some variability of the data. For example, always the first component or the first feature of the PCA represents maximum variability of your data, followed by other components in a decreasing order. Now, how this information can be useful to visualize or understand different patterns within our data. For example, we can draw simple scatter plot based on this PCA. So I'm considering PC1 and PC2. Overall, it represents nearly 46% variability in my data. So I'm considering both of these components as they represent nearly 46% variability. So then I need to take these and then I can draw simple scatter plot. So this is the scatter plot I got, right? After, so this is x-axis. Now, some of the things that I need to do. So here, so we can remove these grid lines and we can also provide x-axis title. And y-axis title so that there should not be any confusion. So our x-axis in this data was PC1. So that is principal component 1. So this was PC1 and it represents nearly 26.43 variability in our data. Then this is PC2, which represents 19.43% variability in our data. Next is, right now we don't know which sample belong to which particular class, right? So the next is labeling of these samples. So how we can do that and understand what are these samples, I mean in different classes, right? We need to understand that. So what we can do, if you just select and then do right click, go to the select data. Here you can add information regarding each of these samples. Now we have COVID samples and we have mock samples. Again, within the COVID. So let's first simply create COVID. So these are COVID infected samples, right? For COVID infected, what are our x-axis? This is our x-axis. And then for y-axis, for the COVID sample, this is PC2 is y-axis. Then the next samples that we have, those are the mock samples. So we can name. Then for the mock samples, what is our x-axis values? Then what is our y-axis value? So then as we already defined classes of all the samples, now we can remove any extra outliers. So we, now we can remove this series. Now we can end this. Now we have, based on our data, based on the PCA, what we understand. So we have COVID samples on the left side, all the COVID samples, and mock samples on the right side. But one of the mock sample looks like an outlier, right? Even within these COVID and mock sample, again, we have two groups, which is at the upper part and lower part, similarly here. So now you can also look at what kind of actually data you have. Even within your data, you have other metadata information, like these are maybe two different replicates. So these are two different samples for two different replicates. So you can actually find that pattern as well. Now, what we can do with this exploratory data analysis? Now we can ask our downstream analysis. Now, what kind of research questions we can ask? So might we can ask simply, we want to identify differentially expressed or significant genes between or significant signature between mock and COVID-19. You can also within these two sample subtypes. So you can ask different questions. So the first, and another thing, before performing a downstream analysis, you need to remove your outliers. So first we need to identify what is these outliers. For example, this looks like an outlier. So you need to, sorry, if you just locate it, this value is -41141. So where is this value? This is 141. So this is the mock sample, and this is, if I want, I can remove this as well. So if I'm looking at this, this is 1652, and so this is 162. So this is how we can identify outliers. So we can remove outliers from our data for downstream analysis. So this is how exploratory data analysis help us to design or refine our further research questions, right? Now, other outputs that we obtained from this geo data. So here we also have read count values. So I have also downloaded these count values. Particularly, these read count values are very useful. These read count values are very useful when you want to perform differential gene expression analysis, particularly using DSEQ or HR. So now we can actually use this particular data as well. Now I have read count values. So first thing I need to do from my read count data, I need to remove these outliers. So I have, these are the count values. So I already, once I located what are the outliers, now we can delete or remove those outliers from our data. Then we can perform differential gene expression analysis to understand what are the important genes or significant genes between these two classes, right? Now let me show you how we can perform differential gene expression analysis. So after I have deleted these genes, then what I did, I have removed those outlier sample, and I prepared my new matrix with the read count data. Now then I'm going to use that read count after removing the outliers for differential gene expression analysis to identify what are the genes that are getting upregulated over SARS-CoV-2 infection, and what are the genes which are getting downregulated after this SARS-CoV-2 infection in comparison to the mock samples, right? So now let me take you again on the server. So how we can perform differential gene expression analysis? You can do that in R as well. I mean, you can perform, if you already have normalized data that follow normal distribution, you can apply Welch or Wilcoxon t-test depending upon whether they are paired or unpaired samples. Or you can apply, if your data is not normalized, you have non-normal data like read count values. So then you can apply differential gene expression analysis using DSEQ or HR. So here under the data mining, you will also find this option. So now we are uploading our input file here. And of course, before uploading the file, always read the note. It is recommended to upload expression in the raw read count values, because there are some of the algorithm that which works only on read count, on read count data. So like DSEQ and HR. So once our data get loaded, next we need to define groups as well. So right now my data is getting loaded. So now we need to define our groups, because we need to identify what are the upregulated or overexpressed genes after COVID-19 infection, or what are the downregulated genes or downregulated pathways. So what we need to do here, first we need to drag these samples into different groups. Always your group B is the group when you should be the condition that you want to analyze. So condition that I want to analyze, that is COVID-19. So COVID infected. So I am just dragging all the COVID samples into group B. Then mock samples here in the first group. And you always need to remember which are the samples you defined, group 1 or group 2, right? So then we can submit. So right now we can start our differential gene expression pipeline. So right now I'm using HR algorithm to identify significantly differentially expressed genes. So you can also choose DSEQ algorithm, DSEQ2. So this is like both of these algorithms takes only raw read count values. So this is our HR pipeline. So again, this pipeline will take 10 minutes or so. So I had already run this pipeline. Let me share its link with you as well. So this is already completed pipeline. So here the output that you need to download, this is zip folder file you need to download. So from this, you will find one single file, which I already uploaded in the Excel file. Let me show you what kind of data we have or results that we have. So just give me a second. Let me. So this is the output that we obtained from Azure pipeline. Now what we have here, so we have FDR, we have p-value, we have log CPM and log FC value. Now we need to understand which particular data or how we can identify significant changes and which are the columns that are the most important here. So right now I'm just highlighting the columns that are most important here for interpretation of the results. So I'm just highlighting them and let me tell you why. And here the FDR, the first column, we need to identify whether a particular gene is statistically differentially expressed or not, right? So we need to consider FDR values. So can anybody tell me like how much FDR is considered as statistically significant? So what should be the FDR value to consider a gene statistically significant? So does anyone have any idea? Okay, so FDR is less than or in general 5% or what we can say, yes, less than 0.05. Yes. So then we need to consider only those genes which are less than 0.05, right? So we can select that and first we can also apply the filter criteria. We can apply filter here. So to identify only significant genes. So it should be less than 0.05. Right? So then you need to understand what are the genes that are getting upregulated or downregulated. So then the important criteria to consider that is log FC. So if log FC value is usually positive, that is upregulated. If it is negative, means downregulated. Again, in literature, that is fold chains, 1.5 is considered as a cutoff, right? So this is something that we need to understand when we doing this analysis. Particularly, this is how we can identify upregulated and the downregulated gene. So this is some of the analysis. So once you have the results, next, of course, you can perform pathway analysis. But before performing pathway analysis, you must filter out the genes. What are the significantly upregulated, significantly downregulated genes? Usually 1.5 fold chains, both in positive and the negative, is considered as standard criteria to identify upregulated and downregulated genes, right? So now if you are interested to join, now let me go back to the presentation. Just give me a second. So let me share my presentation. So to facilitate our research fellows, we have designed a course on this, like designing a bioinformatics research project, where you can find 3 lessons. Particularly, first lesson is about finding the topic in literature review, then finding the data set, and then where you can understand this whole process. And then finally, how you can compile your results in the form of presentation. So if you're interested, you must complete these are the, if you're interested to complete a bioinformatics research project with us. So there are some of the common steps that you need to follow. Always, first of all, you complete your profile, then complete assigned courses based on your research. So mentor usually, our mentor assign you the courses based on your research interest. Then you need to also need to fill weekly progress form to give update and to get the comments on your project. Then you need to complete this particular coursework that I just explained you. So then once you had completed, finally you can submit your research proposal. So then how you can compile your results. And here, so some of the important things that you always need to consider before compiling your research, either in the form of publication or if you want to present it in any conference, you need to prepare your abstract. And usually your abstract is summary of your work. And here, the important 4 steps that you need to consider when you're writing your abstract. The first step is writing about the background or the introduction. Then what are the methods that you have used, and then what are the key results, and then finally what are the key conclusion and the discussion. So these are also the main steps when you're writing your manuscript. So you need to keep this mind, and usually your abstract is in like 250 words or 150 words. So accordingly you have to manage all these 4 sections. And now let me just give you an example of one of already abstract that are published in well-established journal like Journal of Hepatology. So here you can find all the sections. So this is like whenever you're submitting either in the paper or when you are submitting your conference presentation. So these are the sections: background and aims, and then methods, then results, then the key conclusions. So these are the main section that you need to define. So when you join your research program, so then you when once you completed your all the courses in the course number 9, in the second lesson, at the end of the second lesson, after going or completing your literature review and finding the data set, you need to submit this project proposal form.